It is 4 o'clock, but I'm going to go ahead and wait a minute or two more and see if Angela is on the way or shows up. Okay, let's give her a couple minutes. Time this evening. As per usual, I want to point out Deb Starling and thank her for being here and her support, as well as Patrick Hayes from the technology department. Couldn't do it without him. And I just would also say thanks for everybody's patience with the process. Honestly, I think we timed this about right. Things have firmed up in Topeka, so I think we can be very productive tonight. So having said all that, I draw everybody's attention to the agenda. I know everybody has a copy, and it's in front of you. Let's just go around the horn and acknowledge who's here. I'm Jody Marshall from the district office. We have Amy D. from the district office, Dr. Brian Huff from the district office, Lana Sutton, VP of the board, Tom Redden, president, Bruce Haber, Nike principal, Denise Russolo, assistant principal, Trail Ridge, Tony Taylor, assistant principal of high school, Robbie Smith from Nike, Angela Hansen will be joining us from Pioneer Ridge, Mandy Taylor from Trail Ridge, Bev Furlong from Sunflower, and Leslie Ron from the high school. Observing is Mark Meyer from the district office and Renee Nanamaker from Nike. All right. Unless there's any objections, the BOE team would like to jump into some of the remaining non-comp items. Are you guys comfortable with that? Okay, I have a handout. BOE team members already have it, and I'll pull it up here. So I'll go through these one at a time. So all of ours are captured on this one document, I think. I don't think I forgot anything. But it would just start with some additional supplemental positions the BOE would like to request. These are related to unified bowling. So I just cut a little section out of a job description just so we know. We have a full job description, and it was created by Kristen Seckler, who's been doing this the last couple years, getting extra duty pay. So this is just kind of the complementary bowling team for our students with special needs. So Kristen sent me, again, I didn't include the whole job description, but how long is the season, how many practices they have a week, how many competitions they have. And so using that knowledge, I just went in and found a similar position in the supplemental list. And it's very akin to middle school wrestling. Middle school wrestling is 4 to 6 weeks, depending on which building. This is about 4 or 5 weeks. There's a few less practices for the bowling, this unified bowling team, but nevertheless, I felt like it's pretty similar. So I slotted the head coach and the assistant coach in the same place as the middle school wrestling head and assistant. So you can see recommending the head coach be slotted at Group 8. It's about $2,300 based on the current salary schedule. And then the assistant slotted at Group 10. Questions about that? Greatly appreciate Kristen, and I honestly can't remember who the assistant coach is. I apologize. I should have known that. But appreciate their time and energy in supporting this program the last couple of years. This just makes it a lot easier, recognizes what they're doing. We're not doing timesheets, et cetera, et cetera. I'd seek approval on this if you guys are willing to do so. Or you can think about it and discuss it when we caucus probably later. Okay, mark that down as approved. Thank you, guys. Next, let's flow into flex days there. I think there's universal consensus that the flex days were a big hit, and we would like to extend those or add to those. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of opportunities in the calendar as we see it for next year, but we did add a day and a half. So it would require some tweaking of the actual language in the negotiated agreement, because in the current version, we've identified it as 2 days. I want to take the 2 out and just call it the identified days. So year to year, based on what the calendar committee decides, we can try to take advantage and maximize those days. And then each year we do need to identify the days because they're going to change. So I think that that is the smart practice, just to drop those into the negotiated agreement every year. So what we're proposing is the 2 that were included in this year's calendar. They were the October date before fall conferences and the day before spring break. So those are articulated here as October 11th, 2024, and then March 14th, 2025. We've added, requesting adding in that day before Thanksgiving break. If contingent upon creating a PD or completing a PD day on a non-district day. So this is going to be the, not Strawbridge, what is it called? Fastbridge training. And I know Ed Services has given, other employees that aren't necessarily going to need that training other options. And we understand that we're going to hire some new staff, and they're going to maybe have to do this technically after school starts. So we want to be flexible. But if anybody can demonstrate that they've gotten that PD day in, then they can flex that November 26th day before Thanksgiving. So that's a little gray, and I think we all just have to be willing to live with a little gray there and be very flexible. And the other day is that December half day right before winter break. Elementary doesn't have students that whole day, but we didn't feel like it'd be fair to give elementary the whole day to flex, and it's an early dismissal day otherwise. That's why we went with a half a day. Okay? Questions, concerns, feedback on that? I think that's the other thing, is our commitment is to look at these days and see if we can find more. But there's only so many days where we don't have kiddos and it's teacher work time.
So we just had a question about that November 26th day. So I think what we have right now are 2 options for completing the professional development ahead of that day. And that is the Fastbridge training, or we got Greenbush training. So could we counter that instead of just being Greenbush PD in the summer in Lawrence, would there be a way that we could log 8 hours of professional development that is not through Greenbush, whether that be, yeah.
So, for example, I don't have to do FastBridge training. I don't fall under that criteria. But, and when I looked at the Greenbush list, but for example, Herff Jones, which now is Varsity, they offer yearbook training that you can go in the summer, and they have people put on things with their software and things that you could actually do that pertains to the yearbook. To me, that has, I've gone to it for the last 3 years, and I've just done the training because I find it beneficial. But I think there are other things out there that people could actually do, and that way you're giving people options instead of just either the FastBridge training or the Greenbush training, especially if they can come up with something, and especially if they were able to tell you ahead of time, hey, here's what we'd like to do for that professional development day, and if you all would deem it that it would be a legitimate thing for us to do, then I think it's just giving people more opportunities to take advantage of that day instead of just giving them those 2 options, compared to like what Shawnee Mission and those guys do on their flex days as well. They're not pigeonholed on just 2 things that they can do. They have a variety of things that they could possibly do to fulfill that requirement. So that's what we were asking, because for some people, they would prefer to do some other things to actually be able to use that flex day.
I'll take a first crack at that. I think we were trying to take a baby step, to be honest with you, and so many people do need to take FastBridge that we felt like there's a huge group that needs to do that. And so giving options, would that create some level of confusion? And that's not to say they couldn't pick it up at another time. So you raised points that we discussed. I don't know that we've got principals in here and I want them to respond, but I don't know that we have ed services in here to be able to say, hey, we're willing to open it that wide initially. And there's certainly a tracking component to this. So I guess one BOE team member's initial reaction to that is not adverse to going there at some point, but not sure we're ready to make that step for next year, because I do feel like Ed Services needs to talk to building admin and frontline staff about what are some of the options. And the answer might come back, we're going to leave it wide open. And as long as the teacher gets, pre-approval, we're fine with that. I just don't know that we're ready to do that, and we'll be ready to do that by August, guys.
Then the question that I have is then what does that day look like for people who don't flex that day? That's the only day on the list that's a PD day. The rest of them are work days.
Yeah, good question. And Ed Services, I don't know that they've got it all down on paper, but they'll offer something equivalent for the handful of people that want to stick around before Thanksgiving, I guess. But they're prepared for that contingency. I just can't tell you chapter verse what they're going to do, Leslie.
It sounds like we came with just a question, but I'm wondering if we fleshed out the idea a little bit more and extended this conversation a little bit. If we could keep this open or keep this on the table to just give some more details about what our ask is before we take it off the table.
Yeah, I don't think we're opposed to that. Obviously, when we conclude this evening, if that's the only outstanding item, we'll probably have to talk about how we can officially resolve it. And that might mean getting back together to talk about that item. I think you said it very well, Bev. I don't know that we're hearing enough specifics. I think we understand the gist of what you're getting at. But I think you're also probably picking up on the fact that we're not comfortable just, as long as you do something and you put it down on a piece of paper, and that's not exactly what you're asking for, but the answer might be somewhere in the middle. So yeah, we'd probably want a more specific response from you guys. Any other?
I was going to just make one comment on it too. So remember, this all started as FastBridge training, and I just want to make sure that we keep in mind that it is very important that everybody who's going to be doing FastBridge gets FastBridge training. And I know you're not saying that there'd be some other alternate that somebody would be able to do to kind of bypass the FastBridge training, but I just want to make that out loud. That that is the primary. That was what started this whole thing, and then as you know, when a good idea starts to have peripheral problems to it. And so we would like to get to a place where everybody feels pretty good about it. But we definitely need some other minds in here to have that discussion.
Once again, I don't think our goal was to bypass fast bridge training at all. I mean, I believe there's a distinct group of people that have to take that training, and I totally think it's wonderful that they have the opportunity to take it in the summer versus taking it during the school year. And it would probably be advantageous to take them in the summer since we're going to be kicking it off this fall. So that part, we're not trying to say, hey, 86 the fast bridge training and do something else this summer. That was never the intent. The total intent was that for the people that don't need to have fast bridge, could we give them an option so that they could actually take advantage of that flex day at all? As well as, like, for example, it would be great for them to be able to have that advantage to say, hey, when we're coming back to you, here are some flex days that we have that we didn't have before, and we even have the opportunity to flex a PD day. And so I think a lot of people would like that component completely. But I also know that they want training that they're going to find advantageous to them, that they're going to be able to use. I mean, we even kicked around the can and said, hey, what if we were on that particular logging summer where a bunch of us got together and collaborated on, like, our actual core subject areas. Like, I know, for example, the elementary schoolers in the process of trying to come up with computer curriculum to align with the middle school to then align with the high school. Well, the summer would be a perfect time to get together and have those conversations, because then you have time to have those conversations and say, hey, here's what we can do over here at the middle school to help you at the elementary school level. And then the high school can look at us and at the middle school and go, hey, this is what we're needing from you all to do. So we thought we could do some vertical alignment then as well, especially since PLC Plus was put into place this year. And so we had a lot of options there. And once again, I wouldn't tell my elementary counterparts here that you wouldn't need to be doing fast bridge training, but the people that currently are doing the computers at the elementary school wouldn't be doing fast bridge training anyway. So just a thought.
Yeah, we hear you. I just wanted to have it said out loud. So we just want to make sure that's our priority. No insinuation.
The other thing I will acknowledge, and I'm saying this out loud because I've been on calendar committee the last 11 years, is some of these things are, hey, calendar committee, we have to remember to chew on these things, like Thanksgiving break, like parent-teacher conferences. I think as a group, we've just gotten so efficient at cranking out a calendar that sometimes we've maybe glossed over things that later on in the year we hear from our colleagues, hey guys, I wish you would have considered this. So I think the flex day thing feeds into, PD and, when we're taking breaks and where we land some of these other days. So just food for thought for my colleagues on the calendar committee. Okay, well, I think we're in agreement. Yep. We'll table. Oh,
I got something.
yes.
So, since we're looking at doing this for the first time, it seems to me that the educational ed services, thank you, presented a pretty fulfilling list of things wide variety of things for people to choose from. I don't think we need to make this difficult. I think we need to look at it like everybody, there's something there for everybody. In addition to the people that have to get the fast bridge training. Why can't we just move forward that this year, and then we could send out a survey? What would you like to be provided, or what resources would you like to do your, if you choose flex day training? So then we could move forward with that. As Jody said, this is our first year, and nobody wants just to turn it all loose.
I'm just going to say, I don't think we want to turn it all loose either. I think we asked the question before we actually had a good proposal ready or counter ready. But we have parameters that we want to put on it too, because we want it to be fair and we want it to be meaningful. And we want teachers to have opportunities for individualization. So I think we want some pretty tight parameters and not have it be loosey-goosey and just fill out a log and all that. Like, we don't want anybody making anything up. We want it to be truly a meaningful experience. And I just think we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. I guess all we're asking right now is to not take it off the table yet.
Well, I do hear us all having the same goal here. Whatever our employees do, it needs to be meaningful, and it does have to tie into something else that's going on in the district. So I think we can get there. What I would encourage is we're going to caucus at some point. If you guys get together and you're like, hey, we're good with what they're offering, you can come back tonight and tell us that. If not, I seem to remember there's been an occasion or two where we resolved something without getting back together. We did it through emails or whatever. I'm not saying that's what we'll do with an item like this because it's very important. But I think in the past, we've come up with a reasonable way to resolve this without having another meeting. So that might be something that comes in play tonight. Okay? All right. Moving on, I draw your attention to wellness days. This really isn't part of the negotiated agreement. So we hope you buy into this because it's really for everybody. But we just want to be a little bit more liberal with wellness days. There's no restrictions. You don't have to take it by spring break. You don't have to take it by conferences. That's essentially, we're just taking that off. All the other conditions are still in play. Use it or lose it, blackout days. It's just, look, whatever deadline we set, people just tend to wait, and it piles up then, and it impacts buildings. So Mark Meyer, who's definitely in tune with attendance and subs and time off, he's just come to the conclusion that it's just an artificial barrier that creates problems whenever, so let's just take the restrictions off, okay? And we do that for all of our employees, because classified employees get it as well. All right, on the back page is plan time. We are prepared to respond. I did want to include the data relative to elementary and EC that the subcommittee collected last year. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, guys, other than point out that 270 days seems to be the high water mark for elementary. We have it, and it looks like Olathe has it. And I know the people in here have done negotiations for years and looked at a lot of negotiated agreements, so they're not created equally. And there's details in every negotiated agreement about plan time, but again, just from a sheer number standpoint, we're above everyone else except for Olathe. Again, that doesn't tell the whole story. We know that. As you can see, almost all of them have how many minutes a day, and does it include team time and stuff like that. So ours is, I think, pretty consistent. It has most of the same components. But our proposal is for elementary plan time, we are proposing to identify one early release day. Again, this is a response to your request for more plan time. Our proposal is to identify one early release day, a PLC plus day, each semester, and it will be designated as teacher plan time. We had a pretty robust conversation with the elementary principals. Our initial idea was let buildings figure out whichever PLC day they want to pick. And the elementary principal was like, it would be so much easier if the district just designated a day, then everybody and their brother knows it's that day, whether it's paras or special ed teachers or teachers. Everybody in the district knows that's the day where we're not doing the PLC plus stuff. Teachers are just going to have it. So with input from building administrators, we would designate those days for first and second semester. We would pick those. It's not intended to jam anybody up. It's just a logistical thing. Just pick it. That way the whole world knows when it is. I can skip down to EC if you want, or does anybody have any reactions to that? A response to the elementary? And I'll keep going while you're thinking. We fully understand that this is kind of a piecemeal thing, guys, but I think, if I'm being completely honest, that's what we feel like the approach has been the last couple years here. And you guys have done a nice job articulating why you need this and what you're going to use it for, so we do appreciate that. And we would never ask you guys not to bring up plan time again, But the deeper we get into this, the more strongly we feel at some point we're going to have to stop everything. And this is a full-blown plan time conversation, all grade levels across the board. And we really get into what everybody needs and what it looks like and what the school day looks like, frankly. And this has been said before, but the secondary plan time, when it was put in the negotiated agreement, it wasn't put in there with a block schedule in mind. It simply wasn't. So we're not really intent on getting in and messing around with a high school or middle school schedule. But as this continues to come up every year, we realize that it's probably not broken, but if we're going to fix this, we probably need to have a knockdown, drag out, full-on conversation at all levels, and it's not a subcommittee that gets together once or twice. So I guess that's just kind of our commitment to you guys, that if this continues to come up year to year, we're probably going to ask to have a pretty intense study of this. Anyway, any immediate reaction to elementary plan time proposal?
What about supervision duties? Those that are on supervision during that one time, how would they get their plan time?
They wouldn't be doing supervision. So again, that date, whatever it is we pick, we'll figure it out. But certified teachers aren't doing plan time. Isn't that what we talked about, Bruce? Yeah. Yep, good question. Okay, I'll keep on trucking here. We'll look at the EC. EC was essentially taking what you proposed and cleaning up a few things. Some of it was for our comfort level. Some of it was just, we don't know that some of this belongs in the negotiated agreement. So let me just say that we agreed with the early release week. We put it at 3:30 because if we take when we truly are supposed to start early release, and Ed Services was very clear about that, that's sacred time. And so if we look at when early release is supposed to start, we know it doesn't start there, and we know you're transitioning like all the other grade level teachers, but we wanted to hold that harmless or protect that time, so we dropped the 385 to 3:30 because that's what our math tells us happens on an early release day. After the 330 minutes of the school day, that rest of that time is early release time. So that's how we came up that math. It's 1:50 or 2 o'clock? 1:55. Yeah. And again, we know that right now you're not getting into your PLC meetings at 1:55 because kids are getting moved around. So we know that, but it's just an effort to protect that time. And then for 5 days a week, on each 5 day, on minutes 5 days a week, which includes a modified, so I just tweaked some language there, and on each 5 day week without a modified release day, it's 450 plan minutes. And just for the record, 450 minutes is a lot of minutes, but we know that's what you're getting now, and that's the day. So we understand that. The rest of this, we just took it out. One, the IEPs and how many child fines, that's more of a tracking thing, and I don't know that we can guarantee that someone might not get pulled into a fourth child fine, looking at Bev specifically, but we just weren't sure we could promise that. It's a tracking thing. As always, we would encourage our EC staff, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, or you're doing more than your share of those things during that time, then we'd want you to speak up to your building admin and SPED administration. And I think you could trust that we would respond and try to relieve that. And then we understand why you're trying to protect the para time, but this negotiated agreement isn't about classified employees, so that sounds probably a little harsh, but that's not appropriate in our opinion to have in the negotiated agreement. Again, that's one of those things, if you feel like you're not having access to your pairs on a routine basis, then we want to know about it because we want to make sure you're training them, you're doing data, you're programming for kids. We want to make sure you have that time with them.
I do think the reason it was written in here was not about protecting the parent time, but it was about protecting what you just
Yeah. And we know, especially this time of year, they might get pulled. So again, just encourage if you feel like it's excessive, not so much put it in the negotiated agreement, but talk to admin.
And I think that came from a place of discrepancy building to building, and trying to support staff no matter which building they're in.
Yeah. We understand that's probably part of the approach to your plan time advocacy and questions is just building to building, feeling like the professionals, the staff get the same. All right, response to plan time. Or anybody else that has input.
Speaking on behalf of the early childhood plan.
Just speaking on behalf of the early childhood plan time, it's a place to start, and I think it's a good place to start.
Great. Good enough that you'd agree with it?
I hate to be the only one, so, I mean, I would lean that way, but I'd rather talk to my
Okay, understood. Elementary stuff, any feedback, or do you want to take the same approach? Okay. Okay, let me gather my thoughts here. Do you guys have anything you want to pitch at us before we get into the comp kind of conversation?
So I don't have this printed for everybody, but we talked last time about the high school seminar time and the compensation that was going on with that. And I pulled out the part in the negotiated agreement that was written about that short absence time.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to try to clarify the language in that a little bit. So I have it written. It's not a huge dramatic change, but basically what it says right now is when professional employees are absent from class and a substitute is not available, professional employees required by the bill, and then it goes on. And so my language, I added a little clarification that says when professional employees are absent from a class period in which lesson plans are created, to specify that we're not talking about seminar, which is in its nature a collaborative process among students and teachers. But just to clarify that we're talking about when a substitute in the building is covering a class that lesson plans have been created. So if you need copies of that, we could make it, but just something to add to our discussion.
Can you go ahead and remind the group that the goal with this change in language is just so staff know what they're getting into when they cover a class or seminar?
Right, because I think the confusion that happened this year was this language was ambiguous to indicate what absences and what coverage qualify for compensation. And so we had teachers who were covering seminar and were going for compensation, which according to the original language seemed like it qualified for. But I don't think that it's our intent that it is qualified for compensation. So I'm trying to clarify that this is a short absence for a class in which lesson plans are created. So if you are absorbing students from a class in which lesson plans are created, or you are being called to cover a class in which lesson plans are created, that qualifies you for compensation.
Well, my initial reaction is that's a good suggestion. I think we probably want to take it back briefly and chew on that, but I'm quite confident we can give you a response tonight, and we share your goal to provide clarity. So can we have a copy of that? Okay. Other reactions to that?
Leslie, just a clarification too. I can think of times when in seminar you might do something collectively that might be loosely thought of as a lesson. Like you're given a topic to go over with your class. You get where I'm saying, where I'm going here? And that could qualify as a lesson plan. So I guess I just want to keep all that in mind, that might not completely define it.
I think part of the goal of that language is that in the event that seminar is ever transitioned to something that is a planned lesson, that that then it is qualified for compensation. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
so like even on a daily basis, like let's say just 1 week you guys do a lesson on, say, bullying, and everybody has a lesson plan that they're working through on the topic of bullying, then that then would qualify as an actual lesson that's being taught and should be compensated if I'm covering the class.
currently, that isn't, like, speaking about the high school, and we can pass it to middle school if we need to, but currently that isn't something that happens in seminar. And any time that that does happen, so we can pass it that way. Anytime that we do have a lesson that, so like if we have a no travel day and we're discussing the final schedule, that is something that's coming to us. So I am not planning a lesson for my students. That is being provided to me, and I'm essentially guiding them through it. Any person covering that class
Yeah, do the same thing.
can do the same thing.
And I would say even my example of bullying would be that exact thing. Like you're being given a thing to go through as a teacher with them. And that would be kind of a complex example. Yours is probably the more common example. Okay, that helps me.
Okay, 'cause I can't think of a time. I mean, I was there when we created block scheduling,
Yeah.
and seminar was never. In the 13 years, we'd never done it like that, and to my knowledge, that hasn't changed. There are times when you're given information that you're supposed to share with your seminar students about, it might be like we need to check your grades, or we need to do A, B, and C because it's finals week. But it's never like, okay, Mrs. Hanson, you got to come up with a lesson on how to present bullying to the kids and go through these talking points of a video. We just never done that. Now, granted, if you were, then I still think the language covers it, because then I have to develop the lesson.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I've ever experienced during a seminar kind of period in my career has been something that's either as you described, or it is a completely canned, like you don't have to prepare at all. You just sit down there and do it. All right, we're good.
I think one of the other things that we can do that would resolve this is for GEH admin to put out a notice at the beginning of the year, by the way, seminar is not eligible for class coverage extra duty. And then we can include this language, and then right from the jump, everybody's reminded, don't go there and think you're going to get paid. So, okay. I think we'll respond favorably to this, but give us a chance to chew on it a little bit, okay? Okay, other non-comp things or other things you want to pitch before we get into?
We have some supplementals as
Okay.
well. Marching band. Currently, the assistant marching band instructors are at group 12. We'd like to move them up since they're participating in practices, marching, competitions, parades, football games.
You guys have a handout.
No,
Okay,
sorry.
trusting us to commit this to memory, that's dangerous.
Yeah. We could give them that.
12. I said 12.
We can give you something.
Okay.
So that's for marching band. Moving from 12 to 9.
Okay.
Then we have competition cheer. It's a separate entity from regular cheer during the school year. They do have coach and assistant coach, but it's not in the supplementals at this time. So we were looking for the head cheerleading coach for competition to be in step 1,
Group 1.
group 1, sorry. And then assistant in group 2.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. We've got people in these positions that are just,
Getting extra duty.
they're getting extra duty. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So I think for us, okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
High school only.
Okay.
The SysOp position is currently at group 4. We're looking to move them to group 3 with the influx of Chromebooks and all that they're doing now on top of their regular job. We haven't moved them in years.
Would you like me to elaborate?
Please don't. We may come back to that, Angela. I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a chance.
I really don't, but if you would like a
I'm sure
rationale behind
I'm sure it's well thought out, Angela.
I can give it to you.
Data driven.
It is.
Elementary vocals is our last one. They did not move when we moved middle school, but they're doing similar amounts of work. We only moved middle school band, choir, and orchestra. So their middle school is currently at group 6. We're looking to move the elementary from group 9 to group 8, just one step up.
What is elementary doing differently in the last few years to merit that, other than just the cost of living kind of thing? I don't understand what else they're
More
doing.
concerts. They're doing at least 4 concerts a year. They're working with before and after school groups, and they work with the multiple grade levels.
Okay, I think they raised some of this last year, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
those are ours.
Okay, Amy, do you think you understand the competition cheer? Because I don't.
Is it the same coaches that are doing the regular cheer? They're just doing, in addition to that, competition cheer. So it's not different coaches.
So are you talking about like the summer types of things that they're like when they go like or they go to their nationals or those types of competition cheer?
It's during the school year, yeah.
Okay.
So when the season kind of comes to a conclusion at the end of first semester, then they move into competition cheer season.
Okay.
And they're already at group 1 or 2, aren't they?
They're at group 1
Yeah.
now. Correct.
Okay, we may have some follow-up questions, maybe specifically on that.
Thank you.
Anything else on supplementals? We'll have to consider those, guys. Yes, please. Others? Other non, I mean, these are all comp things, guys, but other that aren't salary. Other items before we get into salary? Extra duty, you want to wait on that, I assume, and retirement? You want to wait? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, you guys want to go first with your comp request? You guys are getting predictable. Okay, well, I'm going to turn this over to Amy. She's going to start with a general overview of our financial status based on, you know. You can send it to me. Oh, this could be risky as I get in my emails. Boop. Amy, make sure this is it.
Nope, that's the old one. Nope, old one. Sorry.
I must have deleted it then. All email from you.
Here, I'll send it again.
Yeah. Not yet, but we will. Okay, as I said, Amy's going to do a overview, and then we'll probably jump right into our offer, initial offer. Okay.
Okay, so a lot of this is going to be very similar to what I had presented the last time when we did our budget overview, but things have definitely firmed up as far as the legislature is concerned. So we have numbers for our base aid. We have some additional direction on additional SPED that's coming. And I will caveat this with that Senate Bill 387 has not yet been signed. So we do believe that it will stay intact the way it is, but just giving that caveat that it has not been signed by the governor yet. So our funding projection, so we did, they did decide that we would be able to, they are going to use the previous year or the current year enrollment for your base aid versus in the past, it was the last 2 year, with bigger of the last 2 years. We're going to be able to blend the last 2 years and average those out. That's what that number is based on. They did set the base aid per pupil at $53.78 for the general fund and $54.52 for the LOB. Our special education, that would be our normal categorical aid, catastrophic aid, transportation aid, the other pieces that go to that. And these are the general fund and special education state aid that we are expecting in addition to what we're receiving now. So this is the amount additionally for next year that we're planning for, which is the $2.3 million. In addition, the legislature did approve $75 million of additional SPED aid, and that has yet to be, I actually watched the State Board of Education meeting today, and I did see they didn't get to it yet by the time I had to get up and leave. But they are proposing to distribute that on the same basis that we talked about that Dr. Harwood had shared in February with the legislature, and that is to look at our 23-24 excess cost and compare that with all districts, and then you get proportionally ranked, and then we will end up with an amount. Unfortunately, we will not know the amount until November. However, we feel confident that this number is at least what we're going to get. It could be a little higher. However, every district is being told, make sure you're coding all of your SPED expenses to Fund 30. And so you could end up with districts that leapfrog us or leapfrog each other, and our percentage amount that we're expecting could go down. So we just felt comfortable that this is a pretty guaranteed amount that we would put into this. The thing I will say too is that yes, it is additional SPED aid, but it is not specifically for SPED because we have already been putting almost $7 million of the general fund to cover our excess costs of SPED. So this 1.1 million is just offsetting what we've already been transferring out of the general fund. So it isn't necessarily that we're saying this 1.1 is only going to be spent on SPED. It will be spent on all of the things that we need in the district because it's freeing up the general fund money that we are currently pushing toward SPED to cover their costs. So that gives us a total, right now the projection is 3.4 million of new money for next year. The other piece that we are looking at is our capital outlay funding. Unfortunately for our taxpayers, we are being told that it's a 10% average increase in the assessed property values. So if you take that amount and we look at the amount that we would be getting in capital outlay aid, then we expect that to be about, about 600,000 more. We are already allocating 450,000 of that, and you'll see that below in a second. But shifts for things that can be spent in capital outlay to, again, free up a little bit more general fund money that we can be able to put, offset the expenses that we're expecting to increase next year. So things like software, operations staff, new operations or technology staff, certain things like that can go into capital outlay. We are looking at making sure that we are putting them in there to give some relief to the general fund. So non-payroll budget changes, this is looking at all of the other budgets that are being spent, whether department, building, district-wide, those types of things. So transportation is the first one. We are expecting our transportation costs to go up. And again, this is based on the routes we have today. If we have additional SPED routes added, that number will go up, but so will our SPED aid. So that's the piece that we have to, just go with what we know today. And these are based on the rate schedule that we have with First Student right now, and that is in its final year of its contract next year. So we know there will be a planned increase next year in those rates that were charged. Utilities, we're expecting a 5 to 8% increase. That's what we're being told to average, so we put that in there with an extra $150,000. In operations, we're actually going to decrease what they're taking out of the general fund, and that's what I talked about with the capital outlay. There are certain repairs and upkeep of our buildings that we were putting in the general fund that we now can put in capital outlay, and we are doing that. We already started that this year, and we're going to continue that next year. So we expect we're going to decrease the amount they need out of the general fund by $62,000 next year. Building budgets are flat. We are started this last year. We're at $70 per student. That we are allocating to the building principals to then allocate to all of you in your classrooms. And so we don't expect to make a change on that. It could go up a little if we grow. I have told the principals that you'll either get the amount of students that you had on the last day of school, or you'll get the amount of times the amount of students that you had on September 20th, whichever one is higher. I won't bring it down, but you could get a bump in September. Department budgets, the biggest outlier in this is SPED. Day treatment continues to grow, unfortunately, as do those transportation costs. And luckily, you'll see when we hand our offer to you that we have achieved a lot of in-house positions that were contracted this year, especially SLPs. And so that's going to save quite a bit of money, but the day treatment is continuing to grow, unfortunately. We went from 6 to 15 students this year for kids in day treatment, so it's very expensive. So they're the biggest part in there, but everyone else was reduced. And again, a lot of that is curriculum software we can put in capital outlay, and so we are doing that, and we are going to continue to do that. So that's the net of those department budgets, like ed services, professional development, SPED, technology, all of those folks. And then administrative budgets, we are expecting to cut by $135,000, and here's the reason. We had budgeted pretty high on contractors this year, and we did not use all of that money, and we don't expect that we'll use all that money. In addition, our mowing contract can also go in capital outlay. It's not like this big slush fund, but it is a way that we're going to try to, again, give some relief to the general fund. We didn't spend nearly what we budgeted in legal, which is a great thing, so we hope to continue that, but we feel comfortable in cutting that budgeted amount we're reserving by $50,000. Same thing with dues, and those would be like KASB and USA Kansas and some of those types of City of Gardner, the Chamber of Commerce, those types of things that we pay for districts to be part of those organizations, and we did not spend even close to that this year, so we're cutting that one as well. The only one that's going up is paper. This one's a little bit of an outlier. We've already spent $15,000 more than we budgeted this year. We are going out for an RFP in the next month to try to bring that at least some level playing field, but unfortunately, it has been quite a roller coaster of prices this year. So we're budgeting that to be up $15,000, but the net is minus $135,000. And then insurance renewal, this is our property and casualty insurance. We had a pretty favorable liability casualty insurance renewal. Our property insurance renewal is coming in later this month, and we are expecting it to be less than we hoped, but it's still going to be an increase over what we're paying. So we're putting that at $50,000 more than we were budgeted this year for all of those insurances. So the net of payroll is we're expecting to spend about $380,000 more on non-payroll costs next year. That is going to be something that you're going to see when we give you our offer of taking that out of the new money. And then just for everyone's fun, you can see the historical negotiation salary movement from the past 3 years, in addition to what we have or haven't done with paid district benefit. Questions about any of that piece?
You talked about the staff ads.
I have not talked about the staff ads. So currently we have already added 9 FTE, and that will be on the sheet I hand you in a moment. But there are 5 SPED, thank you, 3 Gen Ed, and then 1 operations. That operations person is another grounds and maintenance person that we hadn't filled, and that will actually come out of capital outlay. So 8 will come out of the general fund, or at risk, or SPED, those funds that we have a little bit more salary heavy. then we also have 21 and a half FTE on our list of requests from buildings and departments at a tune of $1.4 million. I am. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
It's gonna be hard for you to scroll down to the offer on this.
Yep, it is. So we'll just do it on paper.
Camera.
Sorry. Okay. Can we go with that one? Okay. Ready? That's what we agreed to. Okay. You want to speak to it? And I can hand it to them?
So you're going to get a handout here, and then we'll bring it up so the camera can see it. Okay. So yeah, when we scroll through, it's still.
There you go. Sorry about that. Oh, they're seeing it.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's fine. It was fast.
Okay, this is what we're proposing. And I think that Amy's budget overview provides a good context to where we're at financially. And I think it's important to share that whenever we go into this process as a BOE team, we're always thinking about doing as much as we can for our employees and staying competitive. And we're also thinking about work conditions. So that's where the new staff, and we talk about class sizes and building-based resources. So we know almost every year that we need to add, and we do. And that's frankly in the face of declining enrollment. We've done that. But we know that's something that's important. It allows you to do the job we've hired you to do, and it allows you to meet the students' needs. So staffing and work conditions is always one of the high priorities that we need to address that does impact our financial situation. The other thing is benefits, and I know in the survey there was some concerns about our benefits, but we spend a great deal of time and energy trying to make sure we have meaningful benefits at an affordable rate, and that the district can sponsor as much as possible. But benefits never go down in cost. And we have budgeted a 7.5% increase, and I'm pretty confident it's going to be more than that. So that's always in the back of our head as well. You know, the offer is what we feel like we can do, but we know we need to have a little bit set aside for staffing, because invariably we always get really critical requests in July or August. And as Amy said, we've got 21 reasonable requests on the books right now from various buildings and departments. And then again, the benefits will almost always come in higher than what our broker says. So you guys know that, you've been through that with us. But this offer, factors that all in. Definitely want to add to the base. That's always important every year. Definitely want to give the step. Definitely want to, recognize someone spending another year working in the district, serving our kids in our community. Same applies for supplementals. Obviously, the benefit continues, and you can just see the money that went into all this. And then one of the things that will be attached to all of our offers, to be honest with you, is that information at the bottom. These are priorities that we really do want to accomplish that did put a little pressure on the budget. That's just additional context. The building aides are the last group that Mark Meyer has been able to touch with a salary adjustment. Every year we're kind of in a cycle. Who needs a market value adjustment? Could be paras, could be aides, could be custodians, could be tech department. And the building aides is the last group that Mark hasn't been able to touch since he's been here. This has been on his to-do list for the couple years. We feel very strongly that money needs to be set aside to do that. Special ed competition is still fierce. And I think collectively, as USD 231 employees, we understand that continuity with our special ed staff is vital. And so if we can give them a little bit more money to recognize the work they do and keep them here, especially our related service providers, that's money well spent. Because ultimately, when we don't fill those positions, we go out to contract folks and they cost us, 30% more, 40% more, 50% more. And again, that's money that we have to sink into that we can't give back to you guys. Nutrition services, that's a budget neutral thing because they're self-sufficient. And then I think I feel comfortable speaking for the board. They feel strongly that our classified employees probably ought to get a slightly higher increase than some of the other employment groups. Makes total sense to us because 5% on what they're making isn't as much as 5% on what a teacher or administrator is making. So we'd like to commit to that as well as part of this. And we know you guys aren't negotiating on behalf of the classified employees, but that's a goal for us as well.
One thing I'll add as well on there is you'll see in the top part of that compensation offer the reallocation of salaries from general to at-risk. That's, Leslie, that's the survey that I sent out to several of you got it. We had some groups that were not captured, and so we had additional at-risk funding that we received this year, as well as some funding that we had left from last year. And to relieve, again, some of the pressure on the general fund, this is the amount we're, in addition to what we're already charging to that fund, that we feel we can free up in the general fund and utilize those funds that are, we are anticipating will continue to be at that level. So that's why several of you got an email saying, hey, we know that it was a very fast and quick, we're trying to capture as much as we can this year. We'll make it a little more tailored to the groups that are, high school. Those things sometimes weren't really high school related. We'll spend a little more time making sure that, we're picking the right things off of the approved list so that we can capture as much as possible. Thanks to the work that you guys did and to everyone that responded, we actually have more that we could allocate. This is just the amount that we're comfortable with and not running that at-risk fund dry and being able to still take care of, like the Blazer Success Academy person that was just hired, that's coming out of at-risk. We charge all of our math specialists to their interventionists, counselors, part of our social workers, our guided studies teachers. So any of those folks that are truly working with at-risk students 100% of the time are going in there already. So, and that fund itself is about $6.8 million that we're spending. And we felt comfortable that we could spend down a little bit, and this is the amount that we're going to put in to the available funds for the offer.
So on the numbers that you have here, the attrition one are the people that you know that are currently leaving, correct?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
So you are going to replace those individuals, but there are 21 new positions that we're going to be offering.
No,
No.
there are 21 positions that we would like to offer,
To
but we
fill.
have not.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So the 455 covers the 9 that we talked about,
Okay.
and then, and the other,
Gotcha.
like if I make 60,000 and I bring in someone that makes 70, it's the, how much did we save? How
Salary
much
erosion.
are we?
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So I
And
just
that's,
want
you
So
guys know
those two
that's a
together
fluid
is the
thing.
net.
We're
Right,
gonna get
exactly.
resignations this week.
Yep.
I will tell you turnover is way down. That's a good thing across the board. So I don't know that there'll be a ton of erosion when it's all said and done.
okay.
But
above
we are
what's
ahead
on
of the
here.
game, which is
We
fantastic.
always
Okay.
do.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
And there's probably a few loose ends out there. I think you guys have all seen the posting for the Real World Learning coordinator. That's paid entirely by Kauffman funds, so that's not coming out of any of our buckets. And again, going back to work conditions, we kept the interventionist, mental health intervention, the MHIT grant. We are going to continue with that. So again, those are efforts to make sure the resources are out there with you guys on the front lines year in and year out. Caucus? Okay. You guys want to go into the other conference room? Okay. Just for the audience's sake, 10, 15, what are we thinking? The 7 people that are watching? 15? Okay. 5:20. Okay, we're right on schedule here. We're back together. If you wouldn't be upset, we'd like to respond to your supplementals. So, assistant marching band, we're in agreement. Competition cheer, we're going to need to have more data. I don't think we understand this, who's involved, how many students, who's asked them to do this. So we're going to need either job description and number of competitions, number of students. I mean, we're going to need a full-blown job description, and we're not even saying we wouldn't help you do that, but we're going to have to say no at this point. Doesn't mean we're not going to find a way to fairly compensate those folks even this year. You said that they're putting in extra duty. I don't think we've seen that. Okay. So this is at the high school, right? So let us, I mean, you can go back and tell them to take this up with Mike Simpson, but just trust we're going to meet Mike halfway on this, okay? And if that means timesheets or something for next year, we're not opposed to that, but we're not ready to approve a supplemental based on what was shared tonight. SysOp, also respectfully decline, and our rationale for that is classroom technology is kind of at a crossroads. We're looking at new teacher devices. We're probably going to start looking at how students use technology in the classroom, and the tech department's in flux as well. So we'd like to just, I guess, table that one for the year and decline at this point. And then elementary music. We'd like to respectfully decline, but we'd like to get with the elementary music teachers and find out what they're doing, particularly as it relates to before and after school duty. And we would probably offer to pay them because we assume that this is a large part of their request, because we do think there's kind of a universal approach to musicals and how many are done, but we also know some music teachers are doing morning missals or whatever, so we'd like to get a baseline of that. And I'd reiterate that we'd like to compensate them for next year. So we feel like that's a fair compromise on that one. Class coverage, yeah, we appreciate the language change, Leslie and team, and we'd like to go ahead and proceed with that and agree to that as well. Okay.
Okay, so I think the first thing that we had was about the flex days. So I'm going to talk about both flex days and the wellness day. We would like to table this for now. What we would like to do is just come back with a clear counter idea about what can be done to meet the requirements of that November 26th day. Part of my rationale and part of our rationale on that is I think I'm kind of keyed in to what's going on. I understand the emails and I understand what's going on. I don't know that the people who are not doing FastBridge training are keyed in to what that requirement is to meet that flex day for that November 26th. And what I worry is that with the year ending next Wednesday, that with those two options in the summer, if those are not met, then people are going to be coming back in August through not intentional ignorance, of the ask, but they're not going to have met that requirement for that summer Greenbush PD. And I don't think you're going to have a few people who show up on November 26th. I think there's going to be a number of people who come on November 26th because they won't have met that. So we would like to put together some good wording to not make it loose, to make it clear, but things that people can maybe qualify for that are not just that Greenbush training. because I'll be there on November 26th. If that's, I mean, it's just, that's where we're at this point. We're not keyed into PD that isn't FastBridge training that's in June, in the middle of June. So what we would like to do is come up with something clear that is well put together for that would meet the requirements of that PD for that day. And then also add the wellness day to that so that we can kind of talk a little bit more about that as well.
Go ahead.
What if we make it part of the sign out procedure when you check out from your buildings? Is you have to verify your enrollment into a Greenbush or the FastBridge. And if you have not done so, be aware that this is what's going to happen.
We'll think a little bit about that. What I'd like to add to that, if we did do something like that, I would like to have it known what the November 26th training is. So what the November 26th PD is. Because if I know what November 26th is, I've already planned that day as a day that I have to come to work. So if I know what that day is, and I know that there's also FastBridge training that I might not need, or Greenbush training, then maybe I could make a more informed formed decision about what happens over the summer.
I'll just say realistically, if we don't already have that set for November 26th, there's no way they're going to be able to nail that down in the next week. So that's going to be tough for checkout. So what I'm saying is, like, you'd like when they do the checkout to say, here's exactly what we're doing on November 26th. I guarantee you they're not going to be unless Ed Services has that now, which I'm not so
I think
sure
I
they
read,
do.
and maybe I dreamt it, I don't know. But didn't I read if you don't attend one of the things in the summer that they'll bring in some Greenbush stuff on November 26th?
And I think that's probably
which
what
I
it would
think
be
is going to be probably the same
Same.
things that they're offering in the summertime.
It could be. It could be. That could be. But I guess my point is that whatever is at this point in time. So it'd just be more along the lines of clearly defining what is.
So that's all the more reason why I think we want to come back with something that maybe is a little bit more open to specific department PD. You know, that if I'm a SysOp, if I'm a science teacher, and I'm not necessarily seeing something on June 19th that fits me, but that is probably what November 26th is also going to be. What we would like to do is come back with, well, maybe there's another way that you can meet that, and that's why we want to keep talking about it.
Okay, I think that we understand your position, and I don't know that we entirely disagree. I think that it's also a fair point that this email did go out weeks ago, and if this is about people not reading emails, which I know is not exactly what you're saying, then there's only so much we can do there, and there's only so much we can offer. We're not going to be able to offer, 40 or 50 differentiated PD, and I know that's not exactly what you're saying either. But yeah, if you've got some ideas of things that might appeal, benefit from a larger swath, and they can get it out of the way so they can enjoy that flex day in November, I think we're all ears. And I think as we do it this year, we're going to learn about it, and we'll probably be able to do it more efficiently the following year and look at other options. So I'll go back to what I said, and I think Denise said as well. We were looking at taking a baby step here, and the content was a little bit narrower.
Okay, I think the last thing I want to say about that is that I think we all agree that we want a district that offers meaningful,
For sure.
Timely, well put together PD. And I don't think there's anybody here in the district that wants otherwise. I just want to make sure that, I guess I don't know what I'm saying. I just, yeah, it's the last week of school. I agree, and we just need to put a little bit more wording together.
Yeah, I think you guys, it's important for you to hear, we're open to being a little more flexible. I don't know that time permits us to come up with a lot of other options, but we're all ears, and we'll listen to something again. We'll have to talk at the end of the evening. Is this something that we come back together for or not, or are we close enough where we can do this offline?
have to be something that comes from building administrators. And again, I'm not blaming people for not reading emails. I've
Yeah.
gotten emails from people who have read that email, who are trying
Questions.
to get clarification. And I think because it's under this title of FastBridge training, there's whole groups of people
Tuned it out.
that
Yep.
that immediately tuned it out. And if you don't get down to the very bottom of that email, where it then outlines how to follow the link to Greenbush training and do that stuff, I think it's easy to miss in the last, crunch time. And I know that it's came out a couple weeks ago, but we've had AP testing going on for the last week. So we've got teachers who have not been keyed into that, who have been keyed into the things that have been happening at the end of the year. And maybe it's something that is what it needs to be, and we do need people to know that Greenbush training is a thing that you should be signing up for if you want to flex the November 26th day. That maybe that email needs to come with a different subject line from a building administrator in those buildings where we don't necessarily have the numbers of FastBridge training happening. That might look different.
Can I offer just I think what we're hearing is, and I agree with you completely, it might be just an increased clarification. I'll just tell you that in my comment about it being, we're a week away from being done. I hate making changes at the last minute because that's when chaos ensues. But I do think clarification is really important, and I love the idea of having this conversation as part of the checkout, because then it's a one-on-one conversation. And you can get to, and Leslie, your example is exactly the best example, because we've got a whole high school that sees FastBridge and says, not me. So maybe we could focus on increased clarification. Would that be a good way to go right now?
I think it would help a lot. And again, because if we're gonna be coming back to this, and it's gonna be June.
Yeah.
Yep.
And by that point, some of these dates have already come.
Right.
And so yes.
That's the point, is that if we can have this back and forth, but
Right.
once school's gone and people are left, communication is almost non-existent with a good portion of our staff.
Yeah, I don't think it's that people haven't read the email. I think
Right.
it's that people fundamentally don't understand who is being referred to in parts of that email.
And that's why we need to have an increased clarification, because if we make a major shift right now, that's when we're going to have problems, because then everybody's going to be gone, and we have no good way of communicating with everybody. The last good chance we have is checkout. And so maybe we ought to nail it down and really let everybody know, and then live it for a year and come back and maybe make it even more robust. Because I will just say, in my history and my experiences, changing something last minute like this rarely comes out well.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, and the clarification piece I think would be great, but in that clarification piece too, I think it would be very critical, due to the fact that at that checkout time, that also we reiterate to the employees that they check their emails, because we're going to have people that are not looking at their email when we come to, if we're wanting to cast a vote. And then I get people going, Angela, I didn't know we were supposed to vote. And once again, they've put the little timestamp on there says, I am no longer, I'm out of the office from da 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 da. And so once again, then they've lost the opportunity. So I would make sure that, we would tell them that they would possibly, and don't get me wrong, we send an email out to all of them, but a lot of them might get kicked back. So
I think some of this is also, a little bit of trust. We don't want to hit October and have 75 secondary people going, hey, I really want that Tuesday off, and I didn't know what my options are. So I'm not saying we're going to grant a bunch of grace to 75 people, but we've got between August and November to figure out reasonable solutions for folks that are making a good case. And by the way, we're going to hire some people in July and August that aren't going to have access to this. So we have to give them an option. So some thought has already gone into that. So I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep here. But we know when we get back in August, there's going to be people that are left out in the cold, and we want to figure out a reasonable option so they can take advantage of this flex day.
Then,
Yes, emergency, yep.
So the good news is here too is Amy was looking at the list. We got almost 300 people signed up already, so it's good. I mean, we obviously have a whole lot more teachers than that, but it's moving along in the right direction. So that's good too.
so I guess we, with the idea of having some more clarification, a different subject line coming from a different person with some sort of checkout procedure, I think that we're okay with how that works out and come back to it again next year. But we would still like to wait on Wellness Day to have that conversation again.
Okay.
I'm up for early elementary plan time. We would like to counter with 1 per quarter instead of 1 per semester. The subcommittee wanted 1 per month. So we're offering 1 per quarter.
Agreement.
And we have reached agreement on the early childhood special education plan time.
Super.
And then I was needing clarification, if I could see like our actual spreadsheet that we normally have for the salary schedule, are you increasing each cell by 3.92%? I understand the 1250 to the base, but I just need to know when I'm looking at that spreadsheet, is it 3.92% on each one of those cells?
It's the average, and that's
Okay.
what we.
Okay,
I've
so
done
then
in
I'm going to
past.
need to see a spreadsheet with what those
Okay.
averages are, so that I
Sure.
can look at the pockets to say,
Yep.
this person's not getting 3.92%, this person's getting 1%,
Yes.
and this group over here is getting 8. So if
Right.
I could see that
Yep,
piece, that would be
I can
great.
provide that.
And if you could just send it to me electronically, that'd be wonderful.
could do
Thank
that.
you.
That's all we got. So we'd like to table the salary offer.
Okay. So nothing on discretionary or retirement sellback? Okay, do you need any other data or information? All right. It's that time in the meeting where we look at calendars. So we get you this spreadsheet tomorrow. Amy, I don't want to speak for you. Okay. I know next week isn't ideal, but I assume we want to keep the momentum going and try to wrap this up, right? Got a strong no there. Is there any committee meetings or anything next? Yeah, I guess last week of school, probably not. What'd you say, Mandy? Next Wednesday doesn't work. Last day, too many parties, too many.
You want to come in at 4 a.m., I'm all yours. I am there.
Okay, I'll meet you halfway. Okay, I want to just go through this. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are a no-go. So the week of the 27th. Is that the holiday week or? Hold. Okay, Amy's pitching this Thursday. All right, so Tuesday the 28th, 29th, 30th, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week. Well, I think our board members would need that as well. So I don't see that on Wednesday. So it needs to be Tuesday or Thursday. Oh boy. We'll zoom you in. The 30th, May 30th, going once, 4 o'clock. Okay, sold. All right, guys. Thanks for the time and effort. Uh-oh.
What about next Monday? Is that too quick?
That's the last week of school.
How hard is that? Leslie's not doing anything.
You're right. Brian and Leslie can meet together and figure it all out. Right, Tuesday the 28th. Tuesday the 28th. 4 o'clock. I promise to bring snacks this time. Okay, Tuesday the 28th of May, 4 o'clock. Okay, it's a go. All right, guys, thanks. Let us know.